Israel was able to retrieve 3 of our precious hostages as Israel cuts a deal with the Hamas Devil in order to return our precious angels. What's the deal with this deal? We'll be analyzing all angles and aspects of it. Join me today on the Jordana River Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Jordana River Podcast. I'm Jordana. For those of you who are new to the show, welcome. And for those of you who know us, welcome back. This is where we discuss current events here in the beautiful land of Israel. This past Sunday, Israel entered the Hamas-Israel hostage deal. Let's discuss the hostage deal. What is the deal with this deal? Well, first of all, it was extremely moving and exciting to see our precious 3 hostages return. 3 young women, Romy, Doron, and Emily, return to Israel from the Gaza hellholes after being there for over 400 days in the Hamas tunnels and in torturous conditions, which really cannot be imagined. I'm sure a lot of it will come out in the next few weeks. So basically, the deal came into effect, and on Sunday, the 3 hostages were released. I like to show you guys some footage of the very moving, extremely touching footage of our hostages returning back from Gaza into Israel. Here are the scenes of their reunion with their mothers. Take a look. And the reunion with their moms. Take a look. That is Romy talking with her family on the phone as she sits beside her mom. Doron, the second hostage, reuniting with her mom. And the third hostage, Emily, reuniting with her mom. And take a look at these pictures from the past few days. This is Romy with her dad after settling back into her community. Emily, this beautiful picture. Emily lost a few fingers, 2 fingers, during the Hamas captivity. And this was her iconic picture with the flag of Israel. And another picture of Romy reuniting with her mom. So it was extremely moving and touching. I don't think there was a dry eye here in the state of Israel as we all were glued to our screens watching their return. Before we get into the details of this hostage deal that we cut with the Hamas Devil in order to return our angels, even the handover of our 3 young women hostages, that was in the Gaza Strip. In the Gaza Strip, the Hamas terrorists were supposed to hand over the girls to the custody of the Red Cross. It was really agonizing to watch for those of you who did watch this on the news. Not only did the Hamas terrorists, of course, torture us the day before not handing over the list of abductees that were to be returned, of course, because they are a Hamas terrorist group, and that's who we're dealing with. But till the very last minute, they handed over the list of the names of these 3 young girls. But the actual handover was the 3 girls were driving in the terrorist cars, and a mob of hundreds of Gazan Arab males just completely take over. It seems like an out of control scene. It almost looks like a lynch, God forbid. And the truth is, the scene was getting out of control. There were even reports of perhaps our army, the IDF army, almost having to step in and rescue the girls if needed be. These poor girls, they were told only that morning that they were going to be returned, but they, to imagine the horror and the fear of being mobbed by the Arab Gazan mob, all chanting and cheering, and Hamas terrorists have their rifles, and their guns, and they're shooting in the air, even as these poor girls have to scamper from car to car in order to get safely to the Red Cross car. It was a horrific scene. I remember watching it like practically in tears. What are they doing to these poor girls? And these poor girls may have heard that they're returning, but just remember, they've been in captivity. We can't even imagine what inhumane conditions they've been in. They've had to endure for over 400 days. And they could have thought that they were going to be lynched. I mean, this was torture till the last minute. And then Hamas hands them fake party bags, gift bags to take a picture with, to show that they're very nice terrorists. Take a look, a few seconds of footage of these poor girls scampering from car to car, the Hamas terrorists barely controlling the Gazan Arab mob that appears to be just completely overcrowding, and it looks like they were really out of control. Take a look at this. All right, my friends, take a look as the Israeli hostages travel through Gaza City in Red Cross vehicles, but they're scampering. The green ribbons are the Hamas terrorists, armed terrorists with their rifles, and they are barely controlling the hundreds of Gazan Arabs, men, surrounding these poor girls as they scamper from car to car. Take a look. Sickening. The girls are in one of the vehicles. Around you can see the Arab mob. Look at this. Look at this chaotic scene. Chanting violently. Allahu Akbar, they're chanting. God is great. Look as they're trying to push away the Arab mob. Okay, so this is a beautiful picture of the 3 hostages. Doron with her mom, Romy with her mom, and Emily, as you see, she's missing 2 fingers, with her mom. This is after they're reuniting at the hospital complex, designated complex for them. Take a look at the moments, the hours before, surrounded by the Gazan mob. All right, take a look. That's Doron scampering to the car. Look at the horror. The Gazan mob surrounding them on the cars, on the vehicles. There you can barely see the hostage girls running. All right, so what happens is when Israel values life so much, we all miss our brethren, our brothers and sisters that are held in captivity. We still have 94 hostages still in the hellholes of Gaza. And, we don't know them personally. I don't know these hostages personally, but we are all brothers and sisters. And We are all so ecstatic, relieved, and delighted that these 3 girls are home. And we have 94 hostages still in Gaza. Now, because we value life so much and the sanctity of life, Israel was willing to pay a hefty, exorbitant price in this deal. Now, what does Hamas get, the Hamas terror organization? What do they get in exchange for 33 hostages that are supposed to be returned to us in the period of 42 days? So that's about 36 hostages. We hope that most of them are alive. Some of them, unfortunately, are not among the living. And that means that 61 hostages still remain in Gaza after this deal goes through. So what does Hamas get in exchange for these 36 hostages with 61 still remaining there? One, they get 42 days ceasefire. Now, ceasefire is a kind of washed up term for the Hamas terrorists have 42 days to rearm, regroup. We know that they do this each and every time that the IDF has an operation in Gaza in order to eliminate terrorist threats. Afterwards, that's what the Hamas terrorists do. They go back to rebuilding, regrouping rebuilding terrorist infrastructures. And what they're doing in these ceasefire days, we know that they plant booby traps in buildings to, God forbid, surprise our IDF troops with. And so that's one clause of this deal that the Hamas terrorists get, that we were forced to pay them 42-day ceasefire. The second is, okay, I hope you guys are sitting down. Israel agreed to give back 1,700 convicted terrorists. Yes, you've heard right. 1,700 convicted terrorists, many of them, if not most, are convicted murderers who literally killed Israelis, killed Jews, dozens and hundreds of Jews in cafe suicide bombings, hotel bombings over the years, drive-by shooting attacks, and also home invasion massacres where they, during the Second Intifada back in 2001 when it erupted, we had horrific suicide bombings, but we also had terrorists who infiltrated our communities in Judea and Samaria primarily, and would invade houses and shoot entire families, murdering entire families, cold-blooded murders. These murderers are to be released, 1,700 of them. While some of them will be released and deported, will be released into the Gaza Strip, some will also be deported into Turkey and other countries, but many of them will unfortunately be released back to Judea and Samaria, where we have our Jewish communities. So they're going to be released back into their Arab villages, which are adjacent to our Jewish communities. And what we know for a fact is because unfortunately Israel has experience with these sort of hostage deals where we released we paid exorbitant prices. We released, hundreds of hostages in previous deals. We released hundreds of terrorists in previous deals in exchange for abductees that Hamas mainly have abducted. And what we know is that 82% of these released terrorists, murderers, go back to killing. 82%. So it's like emptying out jails would be a dangerous thing, right? It's really no joke. So many of these released terrorists will be, 82% of them go back to killing, God forbid. That's a second clause that Hamas gets in this deal. And a gradual withdrawal of our IDF troops from the Gaza Strip, mainly from the northern Gaza buffer zone that we so so diligently, and with unfortunately a lot of our soldier casualties, being able to form this buffer zone in northern Gaza, which really helped us filter out the Hamas terrorists. It's called the Netzarim corridor, that it basically separates northern Gaza from southern Gaza. It was a wonderful buffer zone, which really strategically helped us in this war with Hamas. And part of the deal is that we gradually, unfortunately, withdraw from that buffer zone and allow millions of Gazan Arabs, Hamas supporting Gazan Arabs, to return to northern Gaza, which, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing because the Hamas terrorists hide out amongst civilian populations, and then it's very, very hard for us to go back in there and get the job done and really eliminate the Hamas terrorist organization. Another clause, doesn't end, is the humanitarian aid to Gaza. Humanitarian aid, we're going to talk about that in just one second. It will double. So we're talking about hundreds of trucks that will be allowed into the Gaza Strip with food, fuel. What happens? Okay, humanitarian aid, it's really a euphemism. It's something that the Biden administration forced Israel to do in exchange for us receiving the arms that we needed and the supplies and the munitions that we needed from the U.S. administration. This humanitarian aid, the Hamas terrorists steal it. So that's a fact. The Hamas terrorists, it doesn't go to the civilians. Hamas terrorists take over the trucks, the humanitarian aid trucks, and they steal it. And then they use it for themselves. So we're basically supplying our enemy. Okay, imagine Nazi Germany. Imagine the American and the Russian and the British troops having to supply aid to Germany. Doesn't really make sense, does it? No, it doesn't at all. So we're basically literally supplying our Hamas enemies who take this humanitarian aid for themselves. And did they look skinny to you in the footage just now? No, they're eating well. They have enough fuel for their tunnels. We're supplying our enemies. And also, the Hamas terrorists who steal the aid, they sell it to the Gazan population for exorbitant prices. And with that being said, that's how they maintain their control over the Gaza population, because the Gaza civilian population is, in essence, dependent on the Hamas terrorists for their sustenance, for their food, for the aid that Israel is supplying, that Israel is enabling Gaza to receive. So the economy of Gaza right now is the humanitarian aid. That is their main economy. That's their sustenance. Once Hamas controls it and steals it, they control the Gaza population. So we're leaving Hamas terrorist organization intact. We're leaving them in charge of the civilian population. That's bad news. So those were the downsides to this deal. Now, once again, I would like to point out, there is no downside to us retrieving our precious brethren, hostages. There's not one person in Israel, I think, who had a dry eye, like I said. The downsides are only the heavy, heavy cost that Israel is forced to pay due to Hamas extortion. Now, again, Hamas on October 7th, when they invaded Israel, murdering and massacring and mutilating 1,200 Jews, raping the women. They took 250 abductees. Why did they take the abductees? Well, A, they're cruel and sadistic and barbaric. And two, this is the deal that they were actually hoping for. This is what they do. They abduct Jews, they abduct Israelis in order to get to these type of deals. They know that Israelis, we value life, we value the sanctity of life, while the Muslim fundamentalists in Gaza value death and martyrdom and being a jihad in the holy war. They really truly value death. So they don't have the same value of life. So who's going to pay more in in any business deal where one side values something? They're willing to pay a lot for it. So they know that's our weak spot. It's not our weak spot, but it's something that they know. They learned us. They learned that we value our lives, our brethren. So we're forced to pay a heavy cost. This is the deal that they were hoping to receive. With the concessions that Israel has to allow, strategic concessions and tactical concessions, and everything in order for Hamas, their main goal being staying in power, continuing to rule and control the Gaza population, continuing to murder. That's what they do. There's only one thing they know to do, and they want to stay in power. Even after October 7th, even after this year of war, that's their main goal, to stay in power. And this deal, unfortunately, is a temporary, shall we say, hiatus in the war, hopefully not an end to the war. We need to eliminate the threat that is Hamas. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the downside of this type of deal. Obviously, it encourages the terrorists to commit, to, God forbid, to keep committing murders and abductions, because they get, so to speak, rewarded for it with these kind of deals where Israel has concessions. Another downside is that like I said, the terrorists, convicted murderers that are going to be released by the hundreds into Judea and Samaria, which is already aflame. This is a front. Israel is fighting 7 fronts in this Iron Swords war. One of the fronts is Judea and Samaria, which was always a more kind of secondary front. We didn't have the resources, manpower, and attention span to go full, to go all in on the Judea and Samaria terrorist infrastructures in Shechem, Jenin, Tulkarem. But the IDF has done incredible work throughout the war, kind of thwarting and preventing attacks, even though unfortunately there were a lot of terrorist attacks from Judea and Samaria throughout the whole war. These convicted terrorists who will be released into Judea and Samaria are a major threat to the safety of the Jewish Israeli citizens in the area and in the country at large. It jeopardizes the entire country to have hundreds of convicted murderers being released. And a few days ago, the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, decided to launch Operation Iron Walls. So this war is called, well, there's different nicknames for it, but one of them is Iron Swords. And this operation is now that the Israeli government defines Judea and Samaria, dealing with Judea and Samaria Muslim terrorists, as a primary war front and no longer a secondary war front, which means they are going to allocate more resources and more troops into the terrorist hotbeds all over Judea and Samaria. And in the Iron Walls operation, they have successfully eliminated about 9 terrorists so far. Not enough. There are hundreds of terrorists in the area. Hamas terrorists, Islamic Jihad terrorists, Hamas terrorists, even the Palestinian Authority terrorists. Let's not forget, Palestinian Authority that is ruled by Abu Mazen. Abu Mazen is about 95 years old or so, and they nickname him the terrorist in a suit. Don't be fooled by the suit, as we spoke about in previous episodes. The Palestinian Authority, which was suggested numerous times by the Biden administration, that they are the so-called moderate Arabs and they should control the Gaza Strip instead of Hamas. My friends, here's the real deal. Here's the real info. They are no different than Hamas. Their goal is also to murder Jews. They just have different ways of getting to their goal. And the Palestinian Authority, the moderate Palestinian Authority, they pay very hefty salaries to these convicted terrorists' families. When the convicted terrorist was able to murder Jews, it goes by how many Jews they were able to murder. Thus they get respectively higher salaries. And if the terrorist is killed during the terrorist attack, the family gets these huge amounts of salaries from the Palestinian Authority. That unfortunately is the Palestinian Authority still gets funds from the U.S. and that should stop, because they are a terrorist, no different than Hamas. They are a terrorist organization. So about 2.5 weeks ago, there was a brutal terrorist attack in the Sumerian community, right near the Sumerian community of Kedumim, murdering 3 Jews. I actually know 2 of them. 2 out of the 3 murdered. One was a neighbor of ours. He was a young father and a police officer. And he, 3 armed, brutal terrorists came to a major traffic artery near the community of Kedumim while the cars were slowly driving and in a sort of traffic jam. They came out of their cars and started shooting at the cars, at a bus, at cars. And this young father, Elad, may God avenge his blood, Hashem Yikom Damo, he was with his young son who was in 4th grade in my son's school. And as he was driving with his son, he saw the terrorists and he bravely shot at the terrorists. And unfortunately, the terrorists shot back and murdered him right in front of his son. This is all to his son's eyes. And his son was very brave as well. The son called the mom and told the mom, called up the mom calmly and said, "Dad is dead, Dad is dead. They shot him." And another woman who was in her early 70s was actually my school counselor, and she was a retired school counselor who continued to work at the same school that I studied at. She was a beloved school counselor, helped numerous students who needed help, emotional help, social help. Her office was always open to everybody. If you guys will, I would like to show you footage of this story 2.5 weeks ago of this terrorist attack right here in the Judea and Samaria area. Take a look at what happened during this terrorist attack. All right, here's the story. Take a look.
3 Israelis were killed and at least 8 others wounded when terrorists opened fire on vehicles in the northern West Bank earlier this morning. The victims are named. The victims are sisters-in-law Rachel Cohen and Eliza Rice, police officer Elad Yaakov Winkelstein as well. The IDF says that 3 shooters targeted a bus and 2 cars that were in the Palestinian village of Al Funduk, which straddles a major artery used daily by thousands of Israelis and Palestinian drivers. The army is still searching for the suspects. We are now joined on the...
Yeah, so that was the terrorist attack near the Jewish community of Kedumim with 3 murdered Jews. Now, what is happening really? What is the real story behind the Judea and Samaria terror? As all the fronts that Israel is battling right now, this is another front that is funded by Iran. Iran is flooding in millions of dollars and arms and munitions into the Judea and Samaria area, to the terrorists in that area, in hope of inflaming and is escalating the terror there and murdering as many Jews, and of course also taking away Israel's ability to fight the other fronts. We have the front of Gaza, the front of our northern front with Lebanon. We also have a cautionary front with Syria. We have the Houthis and Yemenites shooting rockets at us. We have Iran as a direct front as well, who they shot ballistic missiles, many in 2 strikes against Israel during this war. And we have the Judea and Samaria front, and so many fronts. I forgot the 7th one, but that's probably enough, right? So Iran knows that its days are numbered. They're like a wounded, dying, animal that, is very desperate and will do whatever it takes to try to rush to the nuclear bombs that it wants to activate, God forbid. And sorry, why is there a fly at nighttime? I don't know. That's the first time this happened to me. So basically, Iran is doing all it can to arm the terrorists here in Judea and Samaria with, like I said, millions of dollars of arms and money. And this is the result. Now, the IDF now launched the Operation Iron Walls. So in hope of crushing and eliminating the terrorist threats on all of our fronts and the Judea and Samaria front, and hopefully returning all of our hostages very soon. This deal releases 33 hostages. As I said, that means that 61 of our hostages remain in Gaza after this deal. We 61, most of those hostages, we do not know how many of them are alive, how many of them are not, but many of them are young men and young male soldiers that Hamas has put them on the bottom of the barrel in terms of that is their main priority of keeping, because the soldiers, the male soldiers, are their top priority in keeping, God forbid. And we have, Israel has to come up with different creative ideas how to rescue them, because these hostage deals, you can't rely on the devil. It's like relying on Nazi Germany to release, survivors from Holocaust concentration camps. It just doesn't, it's not as effective, and it encourages them to continue, like I said, God forbid, continue murdering and committing terrible atrocities and abductions. And here is a picture of our hostages. Look at these beautiful faces. We still have many, many hostages remaining in Gaza in torturous conditions. So I would like to wish you all, my good friends, good people of the world, Jews, Gentiles, Christians, Arabs, good, decent people of the world, continue praying for Israel, for the strength of Israel. God bless you all, and be well. And to all my subscribers and viewers out there in California, please stay safe. Big hug and wishes for a safe containment of all the wildfires, and hope you guys are well. Have a good weekend, and see you again on the next episode of the Jordana River Podcast. Bye for now.